Well, the people behind the museum at Ground Zero are sticking to their symbol, defending the display of the steel cross found at Ground Zero in their museum, and now asking a judge to toss out a lawsuit that is demanding that cross be removed from the museum. This is the unforgettable image found in the wreckage from that horrible day. Steel beams shaped like a cross, an inspiration in the middle of a tragedy. The steel cross is part of the September 11th Memorial Museum, but a national atheists group has sued the museum, calling the display of this figure unconstitutional. Joining me now, David Silverman, the president of American Atheists, and afterward we'll be joined by a 9/11 family member. David, welcome back to the program. So now the museum has moved to dismiss your lawsuit, which you and I talked about right after you filed it, saying your biggest problem is they are not a state actor. They're a museum. And it's not their job to make sure all faiths are represented in their museum. It's their job to chronicle history, and this is part of history.
Well, this is actually a public museum on public land funded by public funds. And when we look at the 9/11 event, we see an event that captured the hearts and minds of all Americans equally. It wasn't a Christian event, but they're taking this opportunity to put in a 17-tall steel monument to Christianity in a public museum funded by public money, in a religious ceremony by a priest who consecrated the public ground, and they have the gall to say that this is not a religious event. Well, we differ. American atheists have just as much ownership of this museum as everybody else. A lot of atheists died on 9/11, and we demand equal representation.
But you did not have a symbol that was found in the wreckage of Ground Zero. I mean, if there had been, I know one of your demands has been maybe put up a giant A in the museum. If such a relic had been found in the midst of the rubble, they would likely display it, but none was.
No, that's because there are no symbols of atheism. There are symbols of Christianity in the shape of crosses. Everybody knows the cross is a symbol of Christianity, and everybody also knows that the World Trade Center was assembled out of cross beams, and hundreds of those cross beams survived the fall. That does not give Christianity the right to usurp the rest of the nation and to have a memorial solely to itself in our national memorial.
But is it a memorial, or is it an artifact of what was found in the rubble after 9/11, and a place that many folks went to gather, not just pray, but also meditate?
It's an artifact only because it's religious. It is a piece of scrap metal, and the only artifact from it is the fact that people prayed over it. It is a religious icon. It has been deified. Jesus has been carved into the top of it. It is a religious icon. Everybody knows it's a religious icon. And frankly, we find the assertion that it's not religious to be insulting to our intelligence and to everybody else.
So if a church had been destroyed right next to the Twin Towers on 9/11, and the altar was found amidst the rubble, and they wanted to put that altar in the museum, would you have a problem with that?
No. Actually, that would be a piece of history. This is just a steel girder that has been turned into an icon aftermarket, after the event, by Christians who wanted to get this installed in the memorial to the exclusion of everybody else. And I want to make something clear, Megan. We are not demanding that the cross be removed. We are demanding equal representation.
I know.
The cross can
you want
stay.
a big A. You want a big A in the middle of the museum.
We want something, and we will pay for it, but they will not allow us because of bigotry.
You also claim that this is causing emotional distress to you and other atheists, and dyspepsia and headaches.
I think
really?
it's important to know. I think it's important to know that when our rights are trampled, we have the right to refuse it. We have the right to complain.
But you're not answering my question.
And
really,
what?
who's suffering dyspepsia and headaches because of this?
We have several complainants who are suffering, but the point is,
they'll testify to that in a court of law under oath that they are suffering from dyspepsia and headaches because of knowing that this is in this museum?
Yes, and the World Trade Center will argue that the cross isn't Christian under oath as well. We'll see who's telling the truth.
All right. Always a pleasure speaking to you, David. I appreciate you coming back.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Megan, but close enough. For others, as you know, the seemingly religious symbol is actually so much more than that. And joining me now to discuss the other side is Joe Connor. He lost his cousin on 9/11. He fled the attacks in downtown New York with his brother that morning. Joe, good to see you. Your thoughts, first of all, in the response to the interview you just heard.
Thanks, Megan. I'm angry. I'm angry that we are forced to defend this. This was an artifact, maybe that's what he wants to call it, but it was found at the World Trade Center. It inspired inspiration among all those people who were down there at Ground Zero. It was part of the tradition of what happened that day, and whether he wants to deny its religious symbolism or wants to call it a religious symbol is irrelevant. It was very important to the people who were down there at the time. It would be like saying the USS Arizona is should be destroyed too, because people have gone there to pray for the people at Pearl Harbor. You know, let me tell you a little bit about my story on that day. I was in the World Trade Center that morning. I went through it with my brother as we commuted every day. And after the first plane hit, I tried to call my cousin Steve at Cantor Fitzgerald, and I couldn't get him, of course. And I finally got my brother. We met on Water Street, and as we were walking north, I ran into a colleague of mine who was crying hysterically on the street. She happened to be Jewish. The first place we went to was a St. Patrick's Church in Little Italy, and the three of us sat and prayed. And she was Jewish, I'm Catholic, didn't matter. There was prayer that day. That's what we did.
David and his group say that's fine, so you could have the cross to memorialize that piece of the 9/11 aftermath, but they want something to reflect their beliefs, that religion is a big hoax in his view. And he says 500 atheists died on 9/11, and their beliefs or lack thereof should also be represented.
Well, he also said that there is no symbol of atheism. So I don't know what he's proposing. All I know is that we have a symbol there that was inspirational to people, and there's nothing. The other part of it is talking about that this is unconstitutional. The Constitution doesn't talk about that. It talks about establishing religion. If I can just read a quick quote from George Washington, he said, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to the political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports." These guys are trying to destroy those supports a little bit at a time, and they do it by these frivolous lawsuits. They try to bring down our society, they try to dumb us down, and they try to make it the next time it's a little bit easier for them to win one of these. Our country needs to stand tall. They are destroyers. You know, it's so much easier to destroy things than it is to create things. We saw it on 9/11. I mean, the buildings took years to build, and I was a little kid. There was one street in our town where you could see it going up when I was growing up. It took years to build, and it was destroyed in the morning. That's what they're doing here. They're trying to destroy our society and leave a mess in its place like they did on 9/11. And I'm so grateful to the people of America and New York who are standing up to this. We've had enough. Let us leave our lives. You can be atheist if you want. Just don't stop the rest of America for doing what's right.
Well, we will see how this judge rules now in response to the motion to dismiss that was just filed. Joe Connor, thank you so much. All the best to you.
All right, Megan, thank you.